Hi, I'm Dave Vickers and welcome to the Photo Show. It's been a really busy week for camera announcements, with Nikon releasing details of their new D7500 during the summer. Sony have now come out and announced that they're releasing a new flagship, top-of-the-line mirrorless model, the Alpha A9. Remember, if you like what you see on the Photo Show, please comment, like and subscribe in the boxes below. Let's take a look at Sony's new flagship, the Alpha A9. So what Sony have released this week is details of their new top-end camera, the Alpha A9. And looking at the specs, it's looking like Sony are attempting to take on Canon and Nikon at their high-end, top-of-the-range cameras. So this camera is setting out to compete with cameras like the Canon 1DX and the Nikon D5. So we're looking at a top-of-the-range, high-end camera. Being a mirrorless camera, body size is actually going to be smaller than either the 1DX or the D5 because it's got no internal mirror and optical viewfinder. So all of that side is taking out. So you're getting a much smaller form factor camera than either of those two high-end cameras there. Internally, what they've put in a 24.2 megapixel full frame sensor. And they've put in what they're calling a stacked sensor. And the idea of this is that it's supposed to allow data transfer rates to be up to 20 times faster than on other traditional sensors. Although the Alpha A9 does contain a mechanical shutter, in this camera it's going to be mainly used if you're syncing with flash or studio lighting equipment. The main use in this camera is the electronic shutter, and that's going to give a maximum shutter speed of 1/32,000th of a second, which is way above what either the Canon or the Nikon offers with their mechanical shutter. In addition to the really high maximum shutter speed, this is where the numbers start to get a little bit crazier. The Sony Alpha A9 will actually shoot at 20 frames per second. And that's way above the 14 frames per second that you're getting on the Canon 1DX or 12 frames per second that you're getting on the Nikon D5. So again, for sports and wildlife shooting, this camera is going to be ultra fast with a maximum shutter speed of 1/32,000th of a second, shooting at 20 frames a second. It's going to be really, really capable in that kind of area. The other thing with the Alpha A9 is the fact that it uses an electronic viewfinder. It's not using an optical viewfinder and a mirror. There's going to actually be no visible blackout between shoots. When you're shooting with traditional mechanical shutter, when the mirror lifts up in the viewfinder, you're going to get a slight blackout between each shot. That's not going to happen in the Alpha A9. It's going to be a continuous view whenever you're shooting. So what they've done is they've put little diodes in the corner of the viewfinder that actually flash when the camera is recording. So you are aware that you are actually recording images. But at 20 frames per second, that's going to be absolutely huge. And you're getting a live view. So you're going to be able to track any subject you're going without that little blackout in between each shot as you're taking it. To complement the super high frame rate, the buffer in the A9 is going to allow you to shoot, wait for it, 241 raw frames in one burst. So you're shooting at 20 frames per second, and you've got a buffer that will allow you to shoot 241 raw frames in a burst. So in theory, if you held your finger down on the shutter button, you could shoot for 10.5 seconds before you fill the buffer up, which in sports and wildlife photography is absolutely huge. It's more than you're going to need. And again, it's outgunning both the Canon and the Nikon in this area again. ISO range for the Alpha A9 is going from ISO 100 to ISO 51200. So again, it's competing with the Canon 1DX and the Nikon D5 as well in this area. Autofocus. And this is, again, where the numbers start to get crazy. The Alpha A9 is offering, and I've got to check this one more time. The Alpha A9 has 693 autofocus points. So virtually total coverage across the viewfinder of autofocus points, all of which are individually selectable. So you can pick any one of those 693. I'm going to say it again. 693 autofocus points, all of which are individually selectable. And the autofocus will work continuously at 20 frames per second. So the autofocus is absolutely huge. It's absolutely outgunning both the 1DX and the D5. The autofocus on this camera is looking like it's going to be incredible. Sony have also added an in-body 5-axis stabilization to the Alpha A9. So even if you're not using image stabilized lenses, the camera body has image stabilization built in with it. And that will also work in conjunction with image stabilized lenses. So in-body 5-axis image stabilization, another big huge plus point for the Alpha A9. The electronic viewfinder that they're offering on the Alpha A9 has 3.68 million dots. So it's virtually giving a 4K quality image within the viewfinder. So you've got a live view, no blackout, and virtually a 4K image viewfinder. For the first time on any Sony camera, the Alpha A9 is going to have dual SD card slots, one of which is going to be the newer UHS-2 type card slots, which again will allow for faster data transfer. But I think this is things that people have been asking for off of Sony cameras before. Most of them were just the single card slot, but now the Alpha A9 has added the dual card slots and again is competing up with the higher end cameras. On the rear of the camera, Sony is offering a 3-inch tilting touchscreen. And again, Sony has touchscreens have been very good in the past, so this is going to be an excellent addition to this camera as well. Video-wise, the Alpha A9 will shoot 4K video. Unlike Canon and Nikon, the Alpha A9 is actually going to use the full size of the sensor. Both Canon and Nikon just utilize the central area of the sensor, which results in a crop factor being added to the lenses that you're using. With the Alpha A9, it's using the entire size of the sensor, so all lenses will remain at the same aspect ratio as they do normally in shooting. I think it actually shoots video at 6K and then downsizes it to a 4K file within the camera. So again, over the top of the Canons and the Nikons, it's shooting 4K video, but it is using the full sensor size. In the past, one of the complaints about Sony cameras is low battery life. And Sony have addressed this as well. They've added a brand new battery, which is supposed to extend the battery life for up to 2 times over previous cameras. They're also offering an additional battery grip, which will have 2 batteries inside it and again be extending the battery life over previous Sony models. Price-wise, as I've said before, the Alpha A9 is a high-end, top-of-the-range camera. So it's competing with the top-of-the-range Canons, top-of-the-range Nikons. And the price we've got for release now is £4,500 or $4,500. I'm not sure what's going on recently with the exchange rate. At one time, the dollar and pound price was slightly different, but now it appears that most cameras are coming out at a similar dollar-pound amount. So it's £4,500 or $4,500 for the Alpha A9, which is still cheaper than the Canon 1DX or the Nikon D5. It's coming in at a lower price bracket, although, as I said before, this isn't a cheap camera, it's a top-of-the-range, high-end camera. So as I said at the beginning, the Alpha A9 looks like it's setting out to compete with cameras like the Canon 1DX and the Nikon D5, which are used mainly by top-end photographers in sports and wildlife. Now, I think one of the reasons that the top-end photographers use both the Canon and the Nikon is not so much to do with the camera body, it's to do with the range of lenses that are available. If you already shoot with Canon and Nikon, the likelihood is you've got a range of lenses that go with that camera. And at the moment, I think this is where Sony's going to have the problem. They don't have the range of lenses to compete with both those manufacturers. I think Sony's longest lens they have available for the A9 is a 100 to 400, which is an f4.5 and f5.6. So it's not an f2.8 Pro lens like you're getting with the Canons and the Nikon. I think if someone's going to switch over to the Sony, they're going to need to switch over to a whole system. And like I said, until Sony have got a range of lenses available, I'm not sure it's going to attract the high-end customer that they're looking for. That said, I do think that it's a massive leap forward. And I think what Sony have done here is really thrown down a marker to what Canon and Nikon need to be working towards in the future. Anyway, there you go. That's our rundown of a look at the new flagship Sony Alpha A9. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm Dave Vickers. This is The Photo Show. Thanks for watching. See you next time.